A very good morning, dear learners. I, Bharat Vashisht, Associate Professor, Department of Pharmacology, Maharishi Arvind College of Pharmacy, welcomes you all in the learning journey. Today we are going to discuss about the gastric juice. So, dear students, the learning outcome of this video is, after seeing this video, students will be able to understand the definition and composition of gastric juice, identify various cells of gastric glands and functions, and they also understand the physiology of gastric juice secretion, that is the mechanism of gastric juice secretion, how gastric juice is secreted. So dear students, gastric juice is a colorless, watery, acidic digestive fluid which is responsible for digestive purpose. It is the combined secretion of gastric glands and their cells in the stomach. The glands which are there in the stomachs are cardiac glands, oxyntic glands and pyloric glands. And their cells are mucous cells, endocrine cells, chief cells, parietal cells, enterochromaffin-like cells, T cells, G cells, etc. If we talk about the general characters, so total quantity which is there secreted in our body per day, that is 1.2 liter to 1.5 liter per day. And in each meal it is about 500 ml. During sleep alone, that is at the night time, night secretion 400 milliliter per day. That means even during digestion process is not there, if we are empty stomach, we have not taken any food, the gastric juice secretion is there. It is a strongly acidic fluid due to presence of HCl, lactic acid, etc. The pH is 0.9 to 1.5. Specific gravity is 1.002 to 1.004. Freezing point is 0.59 degrees Celsius. If we talk about the composition of gastric juice, so gastric juice is made up of water and solids. Water contains 99%, 99.5% and solids 0.5%. In solid we have organic substances, that is 0.4%, and inorganic substances, that is 0.15%. Organic substances has enzymes and other organic substances. In enzymes we have pepsins, rennin, gastric lipase, gelatinase, urease, etc. Whereas in organic substances, other organic substances, we have mucus and intrinsic factor. In inorganic substances we have some ions, and the important part of the gastric juice, that is hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid along with some ions like sodium, calcium, potassium, bicarbonate, chloride, phosphates, sulfates, etc. If we talk about the concentration of HCl, if 1 liter of gastric juice is there, that is the concentration of HCl is up to 150 milli equivalent. If we talk about the gastric glands, cells and secretions, so cardiac glands, oxyntic glands and pyrolic glands. 3 glands are there. Their cells are like mucous cells, endocrine, mucous, parietal, chief cells, enterochromaffin-like cells, D cells, enterochromaffin cells. Again in pyloric, mucus, G cells, enterochromaffin and D cells. These cells are different in different glands and their secretion is also different, although the name are same. Like cardiac cells, mucus secretes mucus pepsinogen. In endocrine cells, D cells are there which secretes somatostatin. In oxyntic cells, glands, we have parietal cells, which is the important part of this gastric secretion, and the HCl is secreted from this parietal cells, which is the important part. Chief cells are there for pepsinogen and leptins and etc. Now, so students, as you come to know what is the composition is there, what are the cells are there, what are their secretions, now just pause the video and just write the function of gastric juice and just think how gastric juice secretes in our body. So students, I think you have write down your answer, and now we are come to know what are the functions and what is the mechanism of gastric juice secretion. So we are divided this function of gastric juice in 4 parts, that is digestive functions, hemopoietic functions, protective functions, and functions of hydrochloric acids. So digestive functions, if we talk about digestive functions, so they are mainly act on proteins. Proteolytic enzymes are pepsin and renin. The renin is present in the animals only, which is also known as curdless milk, and this convert caseinogen into casein. Some other enzymes like gastric lipase, gastric amylase, gelatinase and urease are there. And what are their functions? So in this table we can see that enzymes, their activator, their substrate and end products are there. If we talk about pepsins, so pepsins, their activator is hydrochloric acid, their substrate is protein, and end products are proteases, peptones and polypeptides. Similarly, gastric amylase is there. It requires acidic medium to act. They act on starch and they convert into dextrin and maltose, etc. Hemopoietic function. The intrinsic factor of castle is very important for this homeopoietic function. This is by parietal cells of gastric glands. Its intrinsic factor is secretes, and their role is there in the erythropoiesis, that is the formation of RBCs. And for RBC, for their maturation, the absorption of vitamin B12, which is an extrinsic factor, is very essential. And this vitamin B12 is important maturation factor during erythropoiesis. Absence causes pernicious anemia. Then protective functions, that is the function of mucus. It protects the stomach, irritation or mechanical injury due to high viscosity. It prevents the digestive action of pepsin on the wall of the stomach, which is a gastric mucosa. Protects the gastric mucosa from HCl because of its alkaline nature and its acid combining power. Functions of hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is very important for this activation of pepsinogen into pepsin, and then the pepsin acts on proteins and convert them into their smaller units. They kill some of types of bacteria. That's why this is also known as bacteriolytic, and sometimes it is also known as antiseptic. Provides acidic medium necessary for the action of various hormones which are there in the body. Gastric lipases digest fats, excretion of toxins, heavy metals and drugs. Intrinsic factors helps to absorb vitamin B12. Extrinsic factor in the stomach is a factor for maturation of RBCs. Then mucin forms a mechanical barrier preventing HCl and pepsin from digesting the mucus of the stomach itself. Now the mechanism of gastric secretion, that how gastric as secretion is there. So gastric juice, as we all know, is a mixture of secretion of different types of glandular cells in the stomach. Fasting juice, even we are not taking the food, the acid is there in our stomach, which is also known as fasting juice, and the amount is 10 to 60 milliliter per hour. It is the rate at which the stomach secretes the HCl. After meal, the gastric juice is secreted increasingly. Secretion is increasingly. The secretion starts immediately after food and has maximum between 1.5 to 2 hours, and it completes or declines after 3 to 4 hours. Now different phases of gastric secretions, they are nervous or cephalic phase, gastric phase, intestinal phase and interdigestic phase. So if we talk about nervous or cephalic phase, as the name itself suggests you, nervous, that means neuronal supply is there, autonomic nervous system is involved in this type of phase. So secretion occurs before the food reaches the stomach. The stimulators, the reflexes which are involved are conditions or unconditioned. So in conditions, smell, sight, thought, even hearing of the food is there. Absence of food will also cause this conditional reflexes. The centers are there in the cerebral cortex and hypothalamus. Afferent nerves are olfactory, optic and auditory nerves. Efferent nerves involved are vagus, and sympathetic nerves are coliac plexus. Non-conditional, food is being chewed in the mouth and is swallowed. Gastric secretion occurs in the stomach even before the food enters the stomach. Amount is 50 to 100 ml is secreted. The gastric phase is there. When the food enters in the stomach, this phase starts. This is controlled by two factors, nerves and hormonal. In nerves, as soon as the vagus reflexes is there, the stomach wall is distended, and this will cause vagal stimulation, and vagal stimulation cause the gastric secretion. In hormonal factors, as the stomach wall is distended, it releases the hormone gastrin, which is circulating in the blood, and again it reaches to the via circulation, reaches to the gastric gland, and it starts secreting gastric secretion. Intestinal phase. This is the phase in which the presence of food in the small intestine will cause the gastric secretion. The secretion starts after a latent period of 2 to 3 hours and continues for 8 to 10 hours. Sensory stimulation is caused by water, meat and partially digested foods. Interdigestive phase, it is the phase in which gastric secretion also occurs between the interval, even in fasting, if we not taking the food, and these both occurs by the nervous and hormonal factors. So if we summarize the gastric activity, how gastric acid secretion, so cephalic phase, which is the only nervous phase, conditional and unconditional reflexes are there, they stimulate vagus nerves. Stimulation will cause secretion of gastric juice. In gastric phase, nervous and hormonal both are there, and in intestinal phase, chyme is there. This is the events which is there in the gastric juice secretion. Sight, smell of food will cause the cephalic phase. When food reaches into the stomach, the gastrin secreted, reached into the bloodstream and again to the gastric glands, and gastrin is secreted. This is the gastric phase. And in the intestinal phase, this gastrin is enterogestrone hormones are there, which controls this gastrin to release, and the acid secretion is stops. These are the references where we have taken this presentation. Thank you all learners, and for any queries, these are my credentials. You can WhatsApp me or mail me for your queries and all that. So happy learning, dear learners.